We are live and ready, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, meeting come to order. Special meeting of Silver City Council, virtual meeting, Tuesday, September 1, 2020, 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Ms. Sweat? Here. Mr. Kohlberg? He's muted. Let's see if we can get him on. We'll try to come back to him. Mr. Campbell?
Here.
Mr. Morrison? Mr. Morrison and Mr. Kohlberg, you're both on mute on your lines. So if you unmute your phone, you should be able to speak for the roll call. Ms. Rojas?
Here.
And Mr. Nathan?
Here.
Well, Mr. Mayor, you do have a quorum with the four that called, the four that on the roll call, and I can see Mr. Kohlberg and Mr. Morrison, so we'll see if they're able to join us here shortly. Oh,
Okay, we'll go ahead then. Join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Excuse absence, we have none. Agenda approval.
I'll make a motion to accept tonight's agenda.
Second,
All those in favor, Sweat,
aye.
Kohlberg, Campbell,
Aye.
Morrison, Rojas,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, approved. Consent agenda, Heidi, please. You still have the flag up? Are you there, Heidi?
I think Heidi's frozen right now. I can see her, nothing's moving. So her connection's frozen. We might be having some issues here.
I'm gonna check with her. There we go.
Yeah, I just checked on Heidi. She's reconnecting. She totally got dropped. And so we're going to take a moment until she can get patched back in.
Okay.
hi, I'm sorry. I apologize, everyone. It dropped me during that screen share. So I did catch the motion for the agenda approval from Rojas. I didn't catch the second, but I'm sure I can look at the recording. Oh, let me make sure I hit record. And we're still streaming, so that's good.
Are you ready to do the consent agenda, Heidi?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the consent agenda consists of the minutes of the regular meeting, August 10th, 2020. And I'd like to make a note that I did put an amended version of the minutes in the laydown. And that's on the pages 3 through 7, I believe, of the laydown. I just needed to remove Jeremiah from those first two, from the roll call on the first two motions because he had joined the meeting late. So if you guys want to approve the consent agenda with the minutes as amended, that would be great.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda of August 10th as amended. And the consent
Second.
agenda.
Get a second? I'm sorry.
Second,
Okay, all in favor? Swett? Swett,
Aye.
Colberg,
Aye.
Campbell,
aye.
Morrison, Rojas,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Okay, approved. Mayoral proclamations, none. Public presentation prior notice, none. Public presentations for items not on agenda. Each member has 3 minutes. Laurel, are you there?
I am, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah.
Y'all can
Go
hear me
ahead.
okay? Okay, great. Just a few things coming up this Labor Day weekend here in Seldovia. So the Chamber of Commerce is hosting Jordan Anderson, chainsaw carver, coming down from the Turnagain Arm area, and he's going to be doing a demonstration of carving, I believe, even starting this evening at the Boardwalk Hotel's lawn area. And he'll be doing that through Sunday, and the schedule's online and posted around town. And it's going to include some quick carve demonstrations, as well as people being able to place orders for carvings. And I believe there's also businesses and folks who have made donations, and you'll be able to put in a bid for possibly winning a prize. So that's a great event that's happening this weekend for people to enjoy, and put on by the Chamber's Chainsaw Carving Committee, headed up by Jenny and Paul Chissis. And then great thanks to the folks at the Boardwalk Hotel. Also happening this weekend is on Saturday, there will be a garage sale at the Seldovia Village Tribe parking lot. They're at the main admin building, and that'll be Saturday afternoon. And if you have anything that you want to sell, folks, you're welcome to join in. And if not, drop on by and purchase. You know, everybody's junk is another person's treasure. So we hope you come and find some good stuff for your households. So those are the two things that I have awareness of coming up in this weekend in particular. And then just a note that the Seldovia Bay Ferry will be running through September 13th. So get a chance to get on board and make a run over to Homer and back before the season winds down. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel. Anyone else online? Got committee and advisory board reports. Each member has 5 minutes. Walt, are you on the phone?
I do not see Walt on the line yet, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on. Any other board reports? I don't think so. Public hearings, ordinance 21-03, and ordinance City of Council, City of Seldovia, Alaska, amending Chapter 18.20 definitions, the zoning districts in Chapter 18.32, 1836, 1840s, 1844, 1848, 1852, 1856, and 1860 and 1864 definitions, and adopting Chapter, excuse me, 18.70 land use table. Heidi, would you speak on it?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this has been a long time in the works. Came through the Planning Commission first, and then has been through a couple of council meetings and work sessions. It's going to start page 14 of your packet. It goes from page 14 to page 57, and it's amending those definitions in Title 18 so that they are more updated in every land use. Hopefully, if we did our job correctly, has a definition that matches that land use type. and it incorporates a land use table, which I got to use last week, and I have to say was really, really handy because you see all the zones and all the uses right there in one place. So that's in the packet there for your adoption if you approve.
Council comments on this?
I make a motion. Oh, we can't adopt it yet, can we? Well,
Wait a
we've
minute.
discussed it. We've discussed it at great length, so I'm supportive of it.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor? if I may.
Yes.
Yes, I would include that also, that we've worked very hard on this and I think it's ready. I support it and it's ready to be put into being adopted. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I too will also be in support. I've run through the table on a number of properties and it seems to be fairly consistent with what the intent is for zoning. So I don't know if I haven't seen any feedback from any members of the public who've taken the matrix to task and look through it. Hopefully folks have got a chance to look through it and check on their own properties to make sure that it's, everything that came out of there is still fairly consistent with what the intent of their property uses are. So I'll definitely be voting in support. Just a comment too, I wonder if Pearlie and John shouldn't try to hang up and try to call back in. Otherwise, we're not going to get much feedback from those guys during this meeting here.
It would appear, Mr. Mayor, if I may, that John has tried once before, and I think he's trying again right now to call back in. But I'm not sure where's Pearlie's at. If he's able to hang up and call back in, that might be helpful.
Okay. We'll go in the meantime, we'll go to public comment on this issue. Anyone from the public have comment on ordinance 2103? Hearing none, what are your wishes, council?
Well, now I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 21-03.
Second that.
All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Colberg, not online, Campbell,
Aye.
Morrison, Rojas,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
motion passes. Thank you. Ordinance 21-04, an ordinance city council, city of Sedonia, Alaska, adopting chapter 11.07, special events. Heidi, would you speak on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So ordinance 2104 starts on page 58 through 65 of your regular packet with an application following pages 66 through 72. This came about after discussion, multiple discussions about different events in town and being able to permit those events and what the procedure would be for that. The procedure and application will just help ensure that the events taking place are insured and following city guidelines, and will also help streamline the approval process in the office without always having to send those events to the council for approval, but they will come to the council for the appeal process.
Thank you. Comments, council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Go ahead.
Yep, two things. On item 11.07.030, the permit application, item 2, the first sentence, I'm not sure if that's a typo, where it says for any sponsor who is not a natural person. I'm not sure what we're trying to say there. The form of the sponsor entity, blah, blah, blah. The application for a permit shall include for any sponsor who is not a natural person. I'm not sure what we're trying to say there. That's
Mr. Mayor, I can speak to that if you would like.
Go ahead.
So I believe that that's speaking to, it's a person in of itself, and it's not a, like, the Soldovia Run Club or, or an entity, a business corporation. So it's an actual person that is the sponsor.
So where it reads under B2 for any, so the application for a permit shall include item 2 for any sponsor who is not a natural person. I don't understand. Am I missing something? What that means, natural person?
Just that it's a human being that's been born and it's not a business entity.
Oh. Okay. It's confusing to me. I don't know how the rest of the council feels about it. That's something that grabbed me and I didn't quite understand what we were referring to. And the other question I had was reading through this, I believe I understand it. If a group of people wanted to do a little demonstration or a little protest or just information like we've done in the past from the post office and walk to the bridge, that I don't think needs a permit as long as you tell the policeman 48 hours ahead of time. Am I correct in reading it that way?
Correct.
Just
It's
a-
not a
Yeah,
property.
yeah. I'm sorry. That's on
Correct.
11.07.020 permit required, but then on item 6, where did I just read that? The following, under B, the following of exempt for the permit requiring of this section of funeral procession. Item 2, item 3, item 4, item 5, item 6, a demonstration provided that the chief of police is notified of the route and location of the demonstration at least 48 hours before the commencement of the demonstration. So I'm reading that correctly. So they don't need to go through a permitting process. They would just notify the chief of police if they're going to do a small little walk through town, let's say from the post office to the bridge, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. And otherwise, it looks like a good document that should help us out with the issues we've had in the past and that way the city is aware of what's going on within the city. And but again, I don't know how the council, would somebody else help me understand that wording of natural person? Maybe I'm just stuck on it, but okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments, council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I've looked at this. I'm not 100% on board with this. So I'm trying to figure out, I know where this came from. This was after the 4th of July this year. And I don't know if this language came from Portland or Seattle or where it came from, but it's got me bothered a little bit. Under the definition of special event, so there's reference to special event means a parade, performance, concert, sporting event, fair, ceremony, or other public assembly for which persons congregate in a street, park, or other public or private property in the city. So the fact that we're mentioning private property, number one, and this is already bothersome to me. Then we get into permit required. No sponsor may promote, advertise, or sell admission to a special event in a street, park, or other public property in the city without having first obtained a permit from the city under this chapter. So under this section 020A, the words private are not mentioned here. I'm not sure if that was on purpose or if that was missed. So I'm trying to figure out how we talk about special events, limiting special event definition, private property. Maybe you guys could help me out if one or both of those are a mistake or if there's just some confusion on that one.
I can speak to that again, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like.
Go ahead.
This ordinance did come from the city of Homer. The language is from the city of Homer. And under the large special event, I left in private property because you can have a special event on private property or city property. It's a special event regardless of where it is. If, if it's a parade, performance, concert, sporting event, fair, ceremony, or other type of public assembly. However, you're not required a permit on private property. So when we're talking about where a permit is required, then if it's a special event on private property, we wouldn't require that. And maybe we could speak more to that in the ordinance if that's helpful. But, and we can remove that language from the definition. I had just left it in there because I felt that it can be a special event either way. That's what a special event is. But now we're only asking for a permit on public lands.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then, so one other item I noticed to follow up. And so on 117020 B3B, on the exemptions, the following are exempt from the permit. And then on the language there, it has sufficient off-street parking to accommodate the anticipated attendance at the special event, according to the standards prescribed in SMC Title 18. Well, the other problem with that one is most of the downtown businesses can't meet the off-street parking requirements, and we all know that. So I haven't fully vetted what that means, but I know that would there would be some impact to most of the businesses under that definition there. And then the other fundamental issue I have with this is that you have a demonstration that is exempt, but you have to have a permit to have a parade. So again, that's sounding like to Seattle or Portland to me. Now you said this came from Homer, so it's not completely surprising to me. But yeah, right now I'm not convinced that we need something like this without some little bit more cleanup on the language. That's all I have right now.
Thank you. Any other
Mr. Mayor,
comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I may speak on just clarification.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Jeremiah, where this really comes from, at least from my end, is when I was part of a run maybe the end of July of last year, and where we had done the run before out in front of the pavilion. And because we were having this run in it was the 10 miler from Jackaloff. And when we had people coming in, we had a resident at the far end of the street who was very upset that we did not tell them that we had a run going on and that the road would be closed because of this event for a little while, and that could he hold off. He was very upset and would go through our chute during the run. And so I thought, and I talked to the city manager, and then there was another run that came up, or another event that the city didn't even know about, but it was being held on on the city property. And so we found ourselves, me being one of them, wondering, okay, how can we eliminate this confusion? And so coming up with a permitting process, to me, I mean, this was last year when this came up, so well before the Portland scene and everything. So I think we need something to let the city know what's going on in the city limits, just for our knowledge. And when people call the city office and say, hey, what's going on with such and such, we actually have a record that said, oh, well, they're doing a race from the post office up Rocky Ridge Trail and back down, something of that sort. So I'm in favor of doing something like this, but I'm also not against the idea of massaging this a little bit more. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments, Council? If not, we'll move to public. Anyone from the public have comments on this item? Hearing none, what are your wishes, Council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I apologize. We just had 2 hands raised for the public. The first will be Miss Laurel Hiltz. Hi,
Pardon me?
Laurel, you're on the line.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate it. I wanted to say that as I go through the document, it does feel it's got a number of layers that certainly have to be navigated, and for many of the agencies and individuals that put on events, there's a fair amount to look at. And I wonder if this might be worth just having an opportunity to have a work session with city staff and local businesses or agency volunteers, folks that, so like the Arts Council and maybe the SOC, and I'm just going down the, the Kachemak Bay Running Club, get a chance to talk through some of the thoughts and maybe give recommendations on some adjustments here and there. Homer being a larger setting, of course, and different dynamics. This might be a little bit more of a bigger document or working document than what is necessary for Seldovia. So that would be my recommendation, just to have a chance to workshop around it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, then Mr. Mayor, we have Ms. Crystal Collier next.
I would just like to say, and I thank you, Laurel, for saying that, because I think she summed it up for me. I do have concern when you are trying to legislate private property in the city limits of Seldovia. And I think you're making it onerous on the property owners to have to comply with something that might not be doable, especially the parking issue. There's very few businesses in the city limits of Seldovia that have adequate parking. And if you invite additional people into your business, I think you're going to already be in non-compliance for a lot of people. So maybe events just won't get to happen in Seldovia, and that would be very sad. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from public? If not, what are your wishes, council?
That on private property, you can't.
You can't.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeremiah.
And I understand what Vivian said, and I understand it. And I remember when this had been talked about, it just seems like how this final language ended up. It just seems a bit overreaching for me. I'm not in favor of killing it. I think what Laurel said had proposed was a good idea. I think it just needs a little bit more work. And I think Vivian alluded to that as well. So unless any of the other council members had wanted to bring forth a motion, I know I'd be in support of tabling this to a time certain date until after we had a little more opportunity to clean up the language or have a work session.
I agree with Jeremiah.
Okay.
I would also agree, Mr. Mayor, that we can have a workshop and go through the item, the document, so we all understand where we're at. I would have no problem with massaging the document.
So you wish to table this?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd go ahead and make a motion to table this to a time certain date after we've had the opportunity to have a work session to clean up the language.
I'll second that.
Second.
All those in favor, Sweat,
Aye.
Colberg,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Morrison, Ross,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Motion passes. Resolution 21-06. Resolution of the City of Sedonia, Alaska, sponsoring the Sedonia Oil Spill Team, SOS, throughout appointment of a member of the City Council of the SOS Board of Directors by annually allocating $3,000 to SOS in the budget. Cassidy, would you speak on that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this came about, I've had meetings with Walt Zonin as well as Todd Paxton at CISPRI. And what we've found out, what has been found out and kind of realized is that SOS is the sustainability model that they've been working under is at risk. And Todd Paxton and I and Walt have been trying to figure out a plan to keep them afloat and sustainable for our community. They are critical emergency services that I think is very vital and an important part of our operations as a community. They are very active. They hold regular training sessions and they keep their membership current on their HAZWAPers, and they're just a very relevant organization in our community, and I want to see them continue offering that type of emergency services to Seldovia. And I think there's an opportunity for us to help them be sustainable and continue on with their efforts, and then hopefully not be able to engage in reactive emergency or an event. So what we've, CISFRI is willing to put in and contribute the large majority of their operating costs. But I felt that we could be a acting member on their board and have more of a engagement with them and a relationship, formalized relationship between the city and SOS in coordinating emergency response services, not just for oil spills, but if there's any need that we would need to rely on SOS and their membership and their roster, we could then do so. I know Andrew Maddox, our fire chief, is very active in SOS, and I think that's a great bridge that's already established, and supporting them financially would help them out during this time. I do know Walt. I see that Walt has been able to call in, and I'd like him to be able to speak on this as well.
Okay. Comments, council?
Mr. Mayor, could we have
We
Walt?
can hear
speak
from
first?
Walt.
Pardon me?
Could we have Walt Sonnen speak to addressing the issue? He's on board now.
Is he on the phone?
Yes, he is. He is, should be joining us to be able to speak just momentarily.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I promoted him to panelist, but because it wouldn't let him talk without it, but I don't know where he went to.
Walt, can you hear us?
Hello, Walt.
I can see him, but it doesn't look like he is able to speak. I'm not seeing an audio connection for him. Let's see. Maybe I can try him on the phone real quick. Walt, I'm going to try you on your
Okay.
line real quick. Oh, and that's a shame. I am not able to call out to his phone right now because of the phone service in town. It's just giving me a busy signal, but I'll keep trying.
So should we go to council comments?
Oh, hold on. Maybe he called in. Let's see. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, well, you can proceed if you would like while I keep trying to reach him.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, if we are continue with discussion until we can get a hold of Walt, I think. If I
Okay,
may.
the phone's ringing.
Yeah, maybe that's him.
City of Seldovia, this is Heidi. How may I help you? Walt. I was, every time I tried to call you, it was busy. Let me put you on speakerphone. Okay, I have Walt on the line.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just not with it on this Zoom thing. I should have started about 5:15. It took me 40 minutes just to figure it out. And
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, I'll give you my spiel on SOS. I'll try to make it as quickly as possible. I assume that you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, well, SOS started a long time ago, and we inherited a barge, and 20 years ago or so, we sold it for $50,000. And we've been operating at a loss of somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 or $6,000 a year. And we're down to about 12 grand now. And we support the CISFRI oil spill and support group for the inlet. And we are sort of an independent operator, but also an adjunct to CISFRI. And we are not sustainable financially because of our insurance, which costs us somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,000 a year. And we made a proposal to Todd Paxton of CISFRI, and he suggested that we form a membership group similar to the way that CISFRI is set up. In other words, in order to be a member, you pay for services. And he proposed that he become a member at $12,000 and had talked to Cassidy, and she volunteered to become a member at $3,000 to make us sustainable. And we had a discussion among our board several weeks ago, and we thought this would be a great idea to explore if we could continue in this manner. And so therefore, Todd came up with the wording on the proposal and whatnot, and Cassidy signed on. And so pretty much that's where we're at. And if anyone has any questions or anything, maybe I could add something.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
So, Walt, to qualify, so what we're actually looking at in Cassidy, what we're looking at is a $3,000 membership from the city of Seldovia to help support your budget, because you don't have any revenue of any sort. What does CISFRI give you? I know the city in the past it's been in kind, where you're given an office space and et cetera, et cetera. What does CISFRI, how does CISFRI help you out? Do they pay for, if you could fill us in on that?
Vivian,
Oh, sorry.
I'm not picking up everything you say.
Oh, okay.
The relationship with CISFRI is,
Oh, I'll repeat myself, Walt. Can you hear me now?
I can,
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
okay. I was just clarifying that the $3,000 that the city would be giving SOS is in a membership form, and you would be seeking another $8,000 or $9,000 to cover your expenses through other membership of the community or the community at large. Is that correct?
Yes, I think I understood what you said.
Okay. And then the other part of my question, Walt, if you could fill us in, what does CISPRI contribute to SOS?
I think, well, CISPRI would contribute $12,000 a year. And it's what I think it's valuable, what we contribute to CISPRI that makes Todd Paxton interested in this proposal, because we cover some of his contingency plans for oil spill response in the lower inlet by covering what we call GRSs, the geographic response strategies that cover the sensitive areas around us. For example, Owens Lagoon and the Seldovia Harbor, Seldovia Slough, and a dozen others all the way up to Peterson Bay and whatnot. That's what makes him interested.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Walt. Any other comments, council, for Walt? If not, we'll go to public comments. Anyone, public have questions or comments? If not, what are your wishes, council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just had one final comment.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd like, I like where this is going. I mean, we all realize SOS is, valuable entity to the city of Seldovia residents, and the services that they provide are invaluable. Obviously, we don't get to see them in action unless there's some sort of emergency or crisis. But when that time happens, then it's obviously extremely important for them to be around. And then also the ability and the way they interact with CISPRI is a big win-win for everyone in the community and our community and all the surrounding communities. So I think it's creative financing. I get it. Times are they're starting to get lean. Obviously, it's $3,000 coming out of our budget in Seldovia somewhere. I'm not sure which account it'll come out of. Cassie, have you given that any thought where that money would come from?
Yep. So in our general fund, we have sold some. We had a surplus auction over the last few weeks that we had a large profit margin on. We've also anticipated with the conclusion of the FY20 audit, we are in better position to eliminate the contract with Cassell right now. That gives us another $14,000 to $15,000 annually. That is in our general fund.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah, you guys have talked it through, so
it's covered. I wouldn't have thrown the ticket out there if I didn't think that we could cover.
Yeah. No, I assume that was the case. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that the city can put money to. This obviously, is an environmental safeguard and protection. So I think it's a good idea. It's a good cause, and I'll definitely be voting in support.
okay, do we need any action on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if we could have a motion to approve the resolution, that would be fantastic.
Thank you. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 21-06.
Second.
Second.
All's in favor, Swett,
Aye.
Colberg,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Morrison,
Aye.
Rojas,
Aye.
Nathan.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Unfinished business, none. New business, request to consider placement, of small business, economic development, rental buildings. Cassie, you want to speak on that first?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd be happy to. So as you all may or may not have noticed, the small business retail shops that we had, that Bobby Sweat had proposed have arrived. So we got done with that. We completed that first phase of this project of creating those economic opportunities for individuals or small businesses without heavy overhead. And so they arrived, and with their arrival, they brought a lot of feelings and emotions. And I think that this is a great time for us to discuss the pieces and parts of the proposal that was accepted by the council, as well as what the next phases are. But before that, Ms. Rojas requested that there be a discussion on consideration of relocating them, or just a consideration on their current location. And I'll hand it over to Ms. Rojas for the lead on that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sure you've all read my letter, my note to reasons why I feel that we should consider moving the location of the buildings. In my letter, I discussed that I feel like our golden apple here is our views and our scenic views. And what most people want to see is that. So when the buildings came, which are gorgeous, they were put there and I had to really second guess what I had voted on earlier, just that it did not quite fit my vision of what our waterfront should be. But then I looked around and thought, well, we've got that 40-foot right of way that we don't use for anything. There's 3 trees planted on it. And I thought, well, gosh, you know, to swing those around 90 degrees and have them face the harbor masters might just be with the trees behind and make them fit a little bit, and would take care of my issue. And I think a lot of people's issue of blocking the view. And also I had actually 3 people who commented when I was kind of standing over looking and visualizing. I said what I was doing. They said, oh, well, that'd be a much better idea, because that way when people are coming up the harbor, they look and they see doors and they would see whatever you have set up there. They would see it right away. There was also a tourist who was in town who was walking by, and when we were standing there twiddling, you know, trying to figure out where to put these buildings, and her comment was as if I had said it, which was, oh my gosh, I'm probably not getting this exactly right, Bobby. Oh my gosh, don't block your view with the buildings. That's your beauty, or something of the sort. So I feel really strongly about trying to protect what we can. And I don't think it's a big issue. Lot 5, where they're sitting right now, is still dedicated as economic development. I support that 100%. Swinging them 90 degrees and putting them over about where I paced off a couple of different times would still be about 27 feet away from the pavilion. There's still that distance between. I also went inside the pavilion, and it does not block. The trees actually block the view of the harbor from the pavilion, inside the pavilion. If you're inside the pavilion, you look at the parking lot is what you see from inside the pavilion, unless you're on the outside. So I don't see it's a deterrent of stopping the beauty of what you have at the pavilion. So I would like the council to discuss and consider, and I feel pretty strongly that we can make it happen. Again, this right of way is not used for anything. Snow plowing would be more expedient to have lot 5 to push it off the bank. You can't do that with is it lot 6, Cassidy? When I keep on, no, lot 6 is the pavilion, correct? But the right of way. So the right of way is what I'm talking about, placing these things. There's actually room to put a 3rd one in there if this is successful. And it would be tucked within those trees. And I just find the setting would be much better, in my estimation. If you have any questions for me, I think I made it pretty clear with my little letter, and but I'll turn it over to the council. Thank you.
Vivian, I want to ask you something. You want to move them next to the used oil tank?
I'm sorry? No,
You want to move next to the used oil tank?
no, no, towards a pavilion. You know where the pavilion is? Between the pavilion and where they're sitting right now, there's a 40-foot right of way,
Okay, all right.
40-foot right of way. So over there. So turn them 90 degrees and pull them back 18 feet, about.
Yeah, I just looked at the pictures on the lay down and I thought they were close to the oil tank. Comments,
No,
council?
opposite.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, the photos in the lay down, there is a memo that I had written up regarding the proposal and some of the details surrounding it. And also, if the decision is to move them into the right of way, I suggest that the council gets a legal recommendation on that, since Title 11 details out permitted activities in rights of way that we list out. Additionally, Cindy Mom has submitted a comment and a letter, as well as some very great photoshops of proposed placements of those buildings that I think are a very good visual for context and for this discussion. And that begins on page 10 through 14 of your laydown. And that may help facilitate some of these discussions and give you a visual.
Thank you. Other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, George.
Yeah, Vivian, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I just would support what you're talking about. I've heard quite a kerfuffle from our constituents about the view being blocked by those buildings. So it seems like it's incumbent on us to do something with them. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Council?
I have a comment.
Go ahead.
Okay, so while I respect Vivian's view, I tend to disagree with her. In my opinion, the buildings look much more attractive to someone who's looking to rent them. I believe on the waterfront. Now, just a little added extra. Originally, they were supposed to face the water. So now they're facing the street, which is neither here or there, but that was the way it was supposed to be originally. I think putting them next to the pavilion, which I can't quite get a visual, it would seem to me that it would impede the view from someone that's inside the pavilion. I mean, I guess I don't quite get it. I've driven by there 100 times, believe me, since the buildings arrived, and I can't quite get the visual. It would, to me then, it seems like the pavilion would be sandwiched between the two buildings and a warehouse, and that it would take away from the beauty of the pavilion when you're walking towards the old boardwalk. I believe there's lots of view spaces in and around that area that could certainly be expanded, meaning that little green space area that people take their dogs to poop and whatever, and utilize, all that stuff can be utilized better to enhance the waterfront views for people to enjoy without moving the buildings. Thanks.
Thank you, Bobby. Any other comments, council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. I think
Yeah,
probably Morrison is on.
yeah, I kind of like the pictures that Cindy put in about it being up by the waste oil. Looks like, I think that would take up less parking, and it's actually blocking the oil from a view. I don't know, it just, the picture looked kind of nice to me up there, and I do believe they would block the pavilion view. I'd have to really get down there and study it, but that pavilion was put there for people to go and relax and and be able to look around, whether they're looking in the harbor, they're looking up the street. I really don't like where they're at now, but I would think up by the old waste oil would be a better option for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments, council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. Per-
Well, we can all
Sure.
see this is, yep, we can all see this is a fairly divisive issue. I went back and looked at the notes, and I'm glad they were in the packet. Yeah, I wish I would have, I spoke up originally against this style. I don't like the gambrel style. I don't think it fits what we're looking at. I don't like the barn style, regardless of whatever it's for. That's just my personal opinion. I think the buildings could have been a little more aesthetically pleasing if they had had a standard gable roof with a little overhang porch, like in a couple of the original, some of the original documentation that we looked at. I never had any idea, and I don't recall it ever being talked about in the meeting unless I missed it, that they were going to be facing the harbor, because I would have never voted for that unless there was going to be a boardwalk to accompany them. And I think we're probably all a long ways off financially from ever getting either an agreement or being able to come up with the money to have, a new boardwalk put in. So I do agree that if you're going to rent them for retail space, they do need to face the parking lot. I'm not convinced their placement right now is obviously, I think they could be finagled a little better, maybe a little farther apart, maybe one closer. I don't know where they're at in relationship to the lot line. If there's any room for the one on the left as you're looking out to slide over without getting into the right of way, and maybe opening it up just a little bit there. When you look at Cindy's proposal, she's got a couple options. Then she did do a great job of photoshopping there. To me, yeah, the first thing that jumped out, the big thing that jumped out was I liked them placed in the trees at an angle, the way you can see them from the water and when you're coming down the street. But then when I looked inside the pavilion, from looking out, that I did not like at all. And I agree with a few of the comments. I think it would be a big disservice to the pavilion. So I don't think we're going to get to, and maybe time's of the essence, I don't know, but I don't think we're going to come to a firm resolution on this tonight without everyone putting their boots on, marching down there and really looking at what we're going to vote on when and if we go to change the location of these, because we need 100% buy-in. And if there's going to be other people from the community, they're going to need to put their voices in, because otherwise we talked about this over a series of meetings last year, and we did not get a whole lot of community input. And now here we are. And as soon as we try to do something which is good, in my opinion, now the pushback starts to come out. So, right, wrong, or indifferent, I get where some of the public's coming from, but I think we need to look real hard before we make a final decision. And from what I'm hearing right now, there's definitely not 4 votes to go in one way or the other. So I think, I did look at what Pearlie just talked about in Cindy's other area, moving them completely down. I'm not saying that's a bad idea. It might be an option. But again, I've looked at them too, and I think we all need to go back down there and just have a really good heart-to-heart on, how this is going to look. Because I think once we make the decision, it's going to be fairly final. They're going to be on skids, but once we start hooking utilities up and stuff to them, it's going to get a little costly if we just, if and when we go to yank them out of there. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have one more comment.
Go ahead, Warsaw.
Yeah, I have to look into my mind's eye and see what they're going to look like in the end. Of course, they won't look like they're 2 objects stuck in the middle of the parking lot. They'll have some aesthetic decorations around them, I suspect, some rocks or some bushes or flowers or something. So at first glance, when you look at them, they look like 2 plastic buildings stuck in the middle of a parking lot. So I have to be careful about how I feel about them as far as they need to be aesthetically dressed up, and they will be, of course. But I still lean toward they're not in the right spot at this point. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, unless-
Go ahead.
is that me? Go ahead.
Yeah, Vivian, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, I think I agree with Jeremiah. I think we all need to go down there and have a look so we're all on the same page. Cindy did a great job. I think the placement of where I visualize these buildings being would not be as close to the building where her Photoshop shows it. That's not the way I visualize it. So I agree that we need to look at it. I'm not so sure about down by the fuel tanks, just because it's in kind of industrial sort of, might be a little bit too close down that way with the garbage and the oil thing to have it happen there. But I appreciate Cindy putting these together. So I would agree that I think we all need to get together, go down there and look. But before we close this off tonight or after the discussion and whatnot, I would like Cassidy to address the problems as she sees it to use the right of way. To me, the right of way is right now a piece of land that we have 40 feet between the two buildings. And actually, Jeremiah, where that first building is set towards the south side, if you're looking at them on the left, that was, Layla made a measurement 44 feet with a 4-foot setback or a 5-foot setback. She said it there. So that's from the pavilion, wherever that line is, over 40 feet of the right of way, and then set back 4 or 5 more feet. But if you could address, Cassidy, why it would be a big deal to utilize that space, or what we'd have to do to change that, that would be good information I'd like to hear.
Sure. So in Title 11, there's several sections of the code. Chapter 11.05 is right-of-way restrictions and regulations. And there are regulations that is adopted by the Seldovia by our municipality that lay out what are permitted activities and prohibited activities within the rights of way. Construction and blocking rights of way. And granted, I know that it is a right of way that is not being used, and that's not defined or a part of our code. So I just suggest that with the language in Title 11, that we should stay within that code. And if placing the buildings in that right of way goes along with the code, as well as, you know, what kind of precedent that we're trying to set and the example that we're trying to set for our community, then go forth. But I do recommend that there's a legal opinion on that, since our Title 11 is so detailed about permitted uses and activities.
Thank you. Other comments, council?
Another option may be to vacate it, but I know that the vacation process is several years long.
Thank you. Any other comments, council?
I just have one more comment.
Go ahead, Bobby.
I'm just really curious. I thought I was pretty clear in the beginning of, I obviously not clear on some things, but I was pretty clear as to where those buildings were going to set. I guess I'm just curious how you guys thought they were going to look when you voted on that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
You had several comments, so make it quick, please.
Yes, but I have the right to make comments, Mr. Mayor. Bobby, I would say that it really took, because we were all on board with what you were doing, but then when they visually got there, we have to remember to be flexible. So when they got there, it was there, and it was a little bit more, well, it was absolutely a visual. So it wasn't quite the way I'd visualize it in my mind, but you're absolutely right. We did. We heard you loud and clear. I knew exactly where we were talking about putting them, but I wasn't thinking ahead because I walk around town a lot and I appreciate, even though I can't see it from my house, I appreciate what people want to see when they come to Seldovia. So if we can, my whole thing is if we can give what's beautiful to everyone and share that and not disrupt it, then we need to jump over backwards and do that. But you're right, Bobby. We knew exactly what you were talking about, but they got here and I was second guessing myself, and that's why I'm proposing moving them over into partial right away, part of lot 5. But you're absolutely right. You did a good job, Bobby, explaining it where they're going to be. There was no question about it. It's just visually for me, it hit a different sense of what I was looking at and what I wanted to be looking at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Council.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think we need to go down there and look around at them in person and just remember that they are movable, just like Lollipop Park is movable. It can be moved. We need to go down there and look, and
are you finished, John? Hello, John?
It appears we've lost him and his whole connection, Mr. Mayor.
Pardon me?
It appears we've lost John's connection, Mr. Mayor. It's dropped from the meeting.
Okay. If there's no more comments, council. we
Yeah,
need to
one
go to
more,
public-
Mr. Mayor.
I've got one too.
Mr. Dathan, go ahead.
Yeah, Bobby, I just wanted to say right quick, I personally don't have any problem at all with where the buildings are. I just tried to convey a message from citizens that I'd talked to about them.
Oh,
Was there
believe
somebody
me,
else?
I got the message too from several people.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
And somebody's
Yeah.
gonna be unhappy no matter what we do, so. As it is.
Go ahead, Jeremiah.
Yeah, I think Pearlie hit it right on the head here, and so did Cindy. And I'm surprised Bobby didn't say anything else. So right now, those buildings and just it is what it is when it comes to aesthetics in our community. That is everything, right? The buildings right now look like fish out of water, just flat out. They look ugly to me. When you either repaint them, you do landscaping, you put all the little goodies around them, you put murals on them, you give it the Seldovia touch. They're going to look 100, even if they stayed exactly where they are now, they're going to look 100 times better than they do right now. That's just a given fact. They just look out of place right now. So I think a lot of this will be solved regardless when the buildings are finished up. You know, they did the same thing in Anchorage here years ago when they put the big white golfing dome on O'Malley there. The public came unglued and they talked about it. They had meetings and, in the end, they decided to paint a bunch of trees on that thing to blend it in. Now you hardly even notice it. It's a humongous white structure right alongside the highway. So all I'm saying is when we get the project finished, it will look a lot better than it does now. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else from the council?
Just one more. Do you guys want me to stage them for you?
I just want to make a quick comment before we go to the public. The city has violated Chapter 11 enough, and how are we supposed to support Chapter 11 to the public if we keep breaking the rules ourselves? Going in setbacks and stuff like Lollipop Park is. So I think we should stay out of the setback. Okay, thank you. Are we ready to go to public comment? Cindy Mom, are you on? Is Christine
Yes, I
on?
am.
Okay, Cindy Mom, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the compliments on the Photoshop. It's pretty cheesy, but I think it really helps to visualize. No matter how much I went and walked around down there, I could not visualize the changes until I did the Photoshop. And I've got about 1,000 pictures of these things from all different angles. If it would be helpful for me to do some more of these with them in different places or different angles, I'd be willing to do that. I hope you read my comments. I'm not going to read that out loud, but I just want to point out, as a business owner, I'm interested in possibly renting one of these. And so I really feel like I have a vested interest in making them as nice as possible. I do agree with Vivian that I don't like where they are right now. I think when you're coming down Airport Road from the Slough Bridge, they just are, they're right there at the end of the road, and they sort of like visually block the flow of your scenic view. And even if they were turned at an angle and pushed over to the side, like Vivian's suggesting, even if they weren't right up close to the pavilion, I think that would help a lot. One of the things about the pavilion also, I went out today and I noticed that as these little buildings are placed up on the skids, the height of the porches is just a few inches shorter than the deck that goes around the pavilion. So with Vivian's suggestion, I think it would be really cool if we could create some boardwalk around the little buildings that would tie in, maybe, you know, have to rebuild the ramp that leads into the pavilion, but make more of a boardwalk kind of setting where it all ties in together. And one note on the trees that are there, those are non-native invasive Mayday trees that the Kenai Peninsula Borough Cooperative Weed Management Area has a program for removing those where they will pay for replacement trees. They're also kind of a short-lived tree. They only live about 30 years. So that one large one that the kids love to climb on may actually be nearing the end of its natural lifespan. So just keeping in mind in terms of landscaping, it would be great, I think, to get rid of those trees and create something else, maybe plant an apple tree or something. And as far as the view from inside the pavilion, yeah, I just was kind of guesstimating what that might look like. But one thing to keep in mind there is that with the buildings kind of toward the street side, when you're in the pavilion, you look out at the water, and the buildings, the little rental buildings, would not block the view of the water at all. It would just block the view of the SVT building and the parking lot. So other than having a bit of light reduction inside the pavilion, I don't think it would really affect the vibe too badly. The alternative placement pictures that I threw in there, I was just trying to, you know, brainstorm a little bit. And I think that would be a pretty sweet spot. It doesn't block anyone's view. The Madfish has been vacant for years. Personally, I wouldn't want to be in the rental that's right next to the used oil thing, but you know, I think it would be a really nice option. And the back sides of these buildings, if we put windows in there, it'll create a much more welcoming feeling. Hello? Did you guys hear anything I said? Anyway,
Yes, we have.
If you want any more Photoshop pictures, I think it really helps. Even walking around down there, you can't really tell, we can't visualize what they would look like. And if you need any townsfolk to be on the committee or anything like that to help figure these things out, I'd be willing to help out with that.
Thank you. Heidi, do you have Christine on the line?
Not yet, Mr. Mayor. Let me try to call her now.
Okay, thank you. Her line was busy.
I'm calling right now, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Christine. This is Heidi with the City of Seldovia. We're ready in the meeting if you're ready to give public comment.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for your time. No, I just wanted to talk a little on the business rental shop placement down on the waterfront. That is the only space Seldovia has anymore to view the harbor, the boats, looking out, driving by, walking by. I watched tourists come up the ramp, turn right that way, take pictures, everything. I am in full agreement of the decision, hopefully, will be made using the 40-foot right-of-way that abuts the city lot. I'm sure 3 of those business rental shops would fit in that area, and that way they would have a view themselves. They would be able to be looking downtown, towards town. They could look out their windows and see the harbor. They could see the people approaching them. It's just that, the view, and any of you are welcome to come up to the house and take a look. It doesn't bother us, them down there. That isn't it at all. We see over them, around them, everything. That isn't it. It is not aesthetically pleasing anymore. It has taken that look away. And I feel that the placement or placing of the business rental shops on the 40-foot right-of-way is more conducive to the area. And that's all I had to say. I'm all for the city trying to earn money or to help out small businesses. And that's about all I have to say, because even walking downtown, walk all the way down Main Street, you get past, getting towards the gas station, and there's nothing pretty to look at. Until, thank heavens, we have Camel Rock to look at. So this is what Seldovia is known for, is that beauty out there. We have a beautiful day. Please don't ruin it. Thank you for your time. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Christine.
Good night.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. What are your wishes, council? You want to
Mr.
table
Mayor.
and look at it?
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, you still have a few people from the public who would like to speak.
Okay. Who are they?
Okay, first we have Ms. Crystal Collier.
Okay, go ahead, Crystal.
Hi, thank you very much. Sorry about last time. I didn't mute myself and I just assumed that it muted, but I'll try to this time. So I think that the buildings, I was shocked when I saw them, and I guess I felt that the flavor of Seldovia might not be represented in them in their current state. Placement could be a potential issue also. I do not agree with putting them in the 40-foot right-of-way, because I do believe that would violate that public right-of-way to put something that probably isn't going to get moved. Because when I first heard it, I thought that they were going to be moved down there and then removed for snow removal and then placed back in the spring, and then, you know, continuing to do that. Obviously, that is not something that can happen, because those buildings would not sustain moving in that fashion. So in looking at them, I think placing them against the pavilion would be terrible, just because the pavilion is, it's created in a way that somebody spent a lot of time making it a beautiful structure. And I know that people are in awe when they go and see that. The timber frame construction is not everybody's cup of tea, but it is, there is some beauty there. So to obscure that with these would probably not be a good decision. But I think that if the city would consider or even think about moving them to the other end of town, down by the city offices. So there's a couple of options there. And one of the reasons that I think that it potentially could be a good location would be it would bring people down to the other end of town. So it'd be past, you could either do before the fuel station where the ferry staging area is. I think there's 2 lots in there. And I don't know if the city dedicated both lots to the ferry staging area, but that's not necessary if they did. There's one person that uses the ferry staging area, and they could just move off and not even use it because it's not used by anybody but one business. So that's kind of a waste right there of 2 lots. And then the other location would be past your value added building. Clean up that area where the old cannery was. Looks like it's starting to collect a lot of junk and things that it could be made to look really beautiful. You could put those buildings there on the old cement pad if it's still there, and you could create landscaping and a nice, way for people to sit and look out on the water there, because that is a great view also. And it, even with the city dock there, you can still see the water, and it is a really nice area. So to me, that's what I would suggest, is just move them down there and open up the town for more business opportunities as people walk down the street and access those. Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Who else do we have on the line, Heidi?
Mr. Mayor, we also have a Miss Laurel Hiltz.
Hello, thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the
go
things
ahead.
that historically Soldovians have had to navigate is the changing landscape and the changing view and the changing environment of what we're used to. And some folks who have lived here for many decades have seen a myriad of change over time. And so it's always challenging to have to navigate that. And even the fact of the waterfront changing is part of that, and something that we've had to walk through. So where, when it shifted from the boardwalk time to the flats, there was a period of time when there wasn't even hardly many buildings at all from between the street and the waterfront. And there was the Linwood, and there was the Harbor Master, and eventually Cleo's shop. Things slowly over time came, and then there was a day when a park was made on Main Street, and I was a teenager, and we loved that there was a bench put in, and we could sit at that bench and we could look across at the view at the harbor, and it was wonderful. We really truly loved it. And then a bank came to town, built a bank right in the view, painted it ugly mustard, and it just ruined the view forever. And we were like, what just happened? And so everybody navigates things that happen in these changes that are extreme sometimes, or just we have big reactions because it's hard. Well, I got to tell you, that building never went away, and the view is still gone. And those changes sometimes have a lasting impact. So I would encourage the council to look at other options for placement, in particular asking you to consider having a long-term vision of the area of what was a value-added processing plant in intent, but to bring some life and refurbishment to the city's industrial zone. If you review the minutes from the time that this was voted on, I spoke to this at that time and asked that you would all consider the other end of town and having a long-term vision to bring revitalization to that area. And we are definitely seeing a cluttering up of the waterfront between the Fuel and Lube and the Sea Otter Center. And I just think that it would behoove us to have greater consideration of the long term rather than the short term. And And so just stay true to my initial feelings that I would love to see those buildings at a different location than where they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurel. Is there anybody else from the public online? Heidi?
I'm not seeing any other hands raised at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council, what are your wishes?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to postpone this until the next meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Swett?
Aye.
Colberg? Campbell?
Aye.
Morrison?
Aye.
Rojas?
Aye.
Nathan? Nathan?
Aye. Sorry, I couldn't get on me.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Okay. Expectations, City of Sedalia projects completed, priorities, objectives, trajectory. Cassidy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on page, I'm on page 108 of the regular packet. Ms. Rojas had asked and requested that we make kind of an inventory of what the administration and the council has done and completed over the last 3 years, so that hopefully it serves kind of a template of where the city is going and what they need to continue to focus its efforts on. It's always nice to take kind of a view of what's been, what we've worked on, what we've completed, kind of where we've been, what we've done and where we're going. So that's what these two documents outline. And I'm not sure if Vivian wants to address anything specifically or make sure that we're staying on this trajectory or add to the list, but I think that she wanted it to be a tool for the next city manager to go off of and make sure that everybody's on the same page so that we can keep this energy flowing in that direction.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Yes. Okay, yeah, thank you, Cassidy, for putting this together. As I look through it, I had a few questions about a couple of items, but this is a great list of our objectives and the trajectory that we're talking about. If the next city manager that comes in, would there be updates as far as like, it's just for example, the tsunami readiness, hazard mitigation plans, continually updating and working on the next steps of readiness for Seldovia. So when the person opens up the file, would there be an update, say, here's where we left off, a little summary? Is that something that you're doing?
Yeah, so much of this we have in-house already, and it's just a matter of making I guess a list and a map for that city manager to access. And I do have, you know, when Todd was transitioning out and I was coming in, he gave me just an update of the kind of the checklist of what's going on, what's current, what's been done, what needs to be done. And I think that's just a best practice and hopefully a norm when there's a transition going on and a healthy transition. And yes, I have every intention of making sure that the onboarding process for the city manager is hopefully as seamless as possible. And I have been engaged in conversations with both Heidi, Jan, and Layla about basically all of my files on my computer and what's happening with them and how we're going to need to approach them as we move forward with the transition and onboarding. So those things are all happening daily, if not weekly, if not sometimes hourly. So we are working on that transition plan, and we can definitely talk about item number 4 as we go into it, because this objectives and trajectory is is a tool, and it's also a living, breathing document. I hope you recognize a few things, because when I had first came on as city manager, we spent some time during city council meetings discussing the priorities and objectives of the administration and the council, and we developed that. And I hope that you continue to have that dialogue with the next city manager. I think that's an efficient and very proficient to go about conducting city business and making sure that everybody is on the same page and is communicating effectively.
Thank you.
Any other comments, council? No comments from the council? We'll move to public presentation. Any comments from the public? Is anyone online, Heidi?
There are still a few people online, Mr. Mayor, and at this time, I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you. We'll go close public comments. What are your wishes, council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just have a question.
Go ahead.
So then, Vivian, I guess the thought, and Cassie, I guess the thought is to, I mean, I know there's one thing on this list that I see after this whole pandemic and communications issue is our communications with our cellular and our internet in Soldovia. And I mean, tonight's not the time, but I mean, that to me, I think needs to move right pretty close to the top of the list here when we do get an opportunity to, meet with the new city manager when the time comes. I think we'd look at this list, see if anything needs to be reprioritized, added, deleted, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this is a super valuable tool. And I appreciate, Vivian bringing this up, and then you guys obviously for putting this together. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, other than information, I don't know if there's any additional action we need to take on this tonight.
Council, what are your wishes? Do you want
Mr. Mayor,
to?
I believe this was for discussion, and I think we've got great discussion items, and I agree with Jeremiah about how we're going to use it. But this was just, correct me if I'm wrong, Cassie, it was a request I had of you to write down give us the document, and you've done that. Great. Mr. Mayor, I don't think we have a reason to do any action on it. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll move on. Sedonia Police Department staffing consideration. Cassidy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as you know, and I hope that you guys were able to touch base with, I call him Human Paul now, not Chief Cushman, but Paul and his family. They took off today on the ferry. It was a very bittersweet farewell. And I know that our community is better for their contributions and their interactions in our community. And I hope that everybody was able to have your moment of send off and well wishes to him. But and he will be missed, and he's going to be very hard to replace. We have been, I'll give you an update on our applications and our resumes. I received several. There's a few that stand out more than the others. There's a few that didn't pass the initial Greg Russell test, and that Greg Russell is our public safety consultant with our insurance company. He's very well connected in public safety across the state and across the nation. And so part of the vetting process with any applicant is to pick up the phone and inquire with Greg Russell about a particular applicant, and he'll give me the yay or nay right off the bat, usually. So some of those didn't make that first cut, but some of them did. And I've been going through their personal history statements their background information, et cetera, and going through that vetting process. I had George come down on Friday. He was able to spend a few hours going through them as well. We haven't got to debrief as properly as we wanted to. We ran out of time on Friday, and this week has turned out to be a little bit more strained than I anticipated, but we're still going through that traditional status quo process for filling that position. And in the hopes that we'll find that right candidate that's not only going to do a great job for us public safety wise, but be a good fit for our community, such as Paul. It took a lot of time and energy for me to pursue him and acquire him from Kenai Police Department, but I knew deep down that he was the right fit for our community, and I felt very strongly about that. So I was forced to be patient, and I'm happy with the results, although I wish that they could have stayed on a little bit longer. So with that, Paul and I have met for several hours over the last few weeks about what was great for him, what wasn't great for him, and what we could do better as a municipality in order to retain a police officer. I think the reality is that gone are the days of the Andy Andersons legendary status of being in a community for almost 4 decades, serving their community for almost 4 decades. And I think it's a reality that that I've come to accept. And with that reality, I want to find a way that we can create some sustainability and retention in the department, providing that police coverage in our community that we want for public safety, and finding that right individual rather than having that rotating door that we've experienced over the last few years. So Paul and I have talked about, obviously you guys, and we've discussed in length on different work sessions and in different agenda items of restructuring the department. One proposal was to consider a 2-on, 2-off model, which many small communities, rural communities in Alaska are doing. That does come with quite a bit of an expense of pretty much doubles our police budget. And so it's always been a little cost prohibitive for us to pursue that type of a model, despite the successes of the model and creating that retention. One idea that Paul and I had come up with was approaching Homer Police Department with Chief Roble. He knows Chief Roble on a different level than I do, just colleague-wise and career-wise. I know Chief Roble very peripherally, but we both wrote letters of inquiry to Chief Roble to see what he would think about contracting and partnering with Homer Police Department and basically accessing their roster of officers. What we would be able to do is Chief Roble has put in a budgetary request for the last few sessions of their municipal budget development, and he's put in the request to have the funds to hire another officer, and he's been denied several times. I viewed that as a carrot that we could present to him and see if he would be at least privy to conversations and further discussions about what that may look like for his department, for his community, and for ours, and bridge a gap and create a formalized relationship. They already support us in several ways with emergency management and just our daily interactions with Homer, whether it's personal, business, travelers, visitors, anything. Homer is a beacon that serves Seldovia very well in a number of different ways. We threw that out there. He was interested in more discussions. He had he had a few very large hurdles that he would have to vet, and that would be, taking his officer's temperature on and taking his council's temperature and seeing what kind of response that would solicit. And I too want to gauge the council's temperature and discussion on, or just your feelings and your opinions and your positions about the possibility of looking outside of the status quo model that we currently have. Maybe identifying our priorities as a community with what that police officer position looks like for us, and just further that discussion. So I'll stop there. I'm yakking away. I'll just stop.
Thank you. Council comments?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm for having our own policemen in Soldovia. I'm not fond of the contracting out.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Cassidy, I heard, I kind of floated a balloon around a little bit to some citizens, and I heard just the same comment that they didn't like the idea of different people rotating through as you described. That being aside, I think financially it makes sense for us. I don't know. I don't know if you're going to be able to sell it. It doesn't really do much for the Homer department, but there may be other incentives that could make it a little sweeter for them. Personally, I think it's a great idea. I'd like to see at least have it explored thoroughly.
Thank you. Other comments, council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a comment.
ahead.
I think everybody has to realize that times have changed. And unfortunately, while we would like to have another Andy Anderson, I think it's going to be harder and harder to get that. I think we're going to end up with exactly what's been happening, is people rotating through. That little scenario Cassidy gave us a little, I can't remember when, but that paper you gave us, Cassidy, that where you put everybody down as to how long they've stayed. And it's been what, about a year and a half, a year to 2 years since Andy has left. That's what I fear we're going to have to deal with going forward. I think we're going to have to think outside the box. What that is, I'm not exactly sure. That 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off seems to be okay, but I'm just not sure about the budget part of it. So I don't really know. I just know we have to do something else because it's obviously not working this way. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Anybody else?
Yes. I mean, here we are again, and I don't know if Paul shared anything with you, Cassidy, that what the city could have done that would have made his choice. I think his was a personal decision, but if he had any outlook about what would have made the position more appealing. But the fact of the matter is that we have people who come periods of time, and that's really too bad for us. I think ultimately everyone would agree if we could find a policeman who wanted to come here in our best for budget wise, that would be best. If that doesn't happen, then we do need to consider something else. And I'm not so sure that it's not, unless I'm misunderstanding this, that it's not pretty attractive for Homer, because we're looking at what do we pay our policemen? $120,000 with benefits. Is that correct? Cassidy, roughly, what is it? I'm thinking of somebody else.
No, we contracted with Chief Cushman right around 84 plus living stipend and benefits. It cost the city of Soldovia with liabilities and benefits around 117 grand.
117? Okay, so that's $117,000. That perhaps would be attractive to Homer. I don't know. I mean, they're trying to, as you said, trying to hire somebody, and he's getting no from his council. Yeah, we can say thinking out of the box, and I guess I really need to know what that means as far as a policeman goes. You know, what does that mean? But I mean, first and foremost, it'd be great to find somebody who want to come here. So maybe in the applicants, there is some golden goose there, but otherwise it's going to have to be a discussion of what do we get? What do we want in a community? And what we're going to do in the interim of not having one again. I don't know. So I would like to hear about what all is outside of the box besides going with a 2 on, 2 off. Enough that 2 on, 2 off, Cassidy, that would be 2 people rotating, or we wouldn't have a cop for 2 weeks. Explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, we'd have one officer do a 2-week stint. They would rotate out. Another officer would come in for a 2-week stint.
Okay, so we'd have 2 officers who flip flop coming in and out of the community. And that we have considered, oh, there goes a bear right in front of my SVT. We looked at that thinking that's gonna be twice as much.
It's gonna run us, if I ran the numbers, if I remember correctly, it's gonna cost us probably around 140 lodging and travel.
Whoops.
Now,
Do we have a police town by any chance?
One of the challenges that Chief Cushman found was the lack of anonymity that you're not able to have. You're not able to just be Paul. You're always Chief Cushman, and not being able to have that healthy boundary and that healthy way of stepping back and not being in that role was significant. And I think there's a certain level that comes with the position, and it takes a certain type of an individual to kind of have to be on 24/7. I am not the police officer, but even in my position, I'm always, I'm never Cassidy the human. I'm Cassidy the city manager, and you don't get to break away and not be that identified person in the community. And so for him, it was important to be able to have a chance to break away and not feel guilty, have somebody that's backing up, that is taking that role on for him, so he can shut his cell phone off when he's going on vacation with his family. And he was not able to do that. So to be able to create that space for this candidate is, I think, very valuable. I don't know how to do that with just one person. It's impossible to do with one person.
Right.
Any other comments, council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Chairway.
I would agree wholeheartedly. I mean, despite, what we're hearing from some of the from some of our constituents, the reality is it all comes down to budget. It comes down to, I think the biggest thing, and I've spoken on this in the past, is exactly what Cassidy just talked about. There's no personal time. Basically, you don't get any kind of personal life to yourself here. We knew that would be a problem. Granted, we signed, I think, a 5-year contract with Paul. I think it lasted 2.5 years, something along those lines. Maybe there was, I know there were some other things that probably weighed on his decision to leave. But yeah, no, I think we're going to have this problem with anyone if we try to bring one person back in. It's not going to work. I've been here 7 going on 8 years now, and we've had five different police officers. One of them was interim, but we've had 5 in almost 8 years. So that's a pretty high turnover. So yeah, I think the model or the concept of contracting, I know Hal had talked about it a little bit when he was our police chief. And I think that idea has a lot of merit. My idea, you contract, if we could get to a number that was beneficial for, whether it's Homer's convenient because they're, a 15-minute flight away with no additional drive time, No, none of that stuff. For me, it's a simple deal. We would have to come up with housing, and we'd have to come up with a salary or a contract rate for Homer that we live with, and then we get what we get. I mean, I don't imagine it's going to be the same person. 4 weeks in a month, we might get 4 different people on 1 week rotations, which to me would be fine. You might get 3 good guys. You might get 1 guy that you're not real too happy with. It'll definitely keep everybody on their toes, but I think it's time we have to start looking way outside the box, do something different. It's probably going to cost us a few more bucks, but ultimately for me living in Soldovia, I want one thing. I want to know that if there's a real true emergency, I can call 911 and I know somebody's going to show up. Simple as that. No different on fire, no different on EMS, no different on police. Police for everyone is extremely important. So yeah, I'm completely 100% the opposite of defunding or disbanding the police. More is better. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Anyone else, council? Go ahead, Mr. Morrison.
Yeah, I'm a kind of a different person. I don't buy into I don't get any free time. That's the job he signed up for. That's the job any policeman that comes in here and be the chief of police. That's what they sign up for. That's their job. And there's some free time that nothing's happening. I just don't understand it. It's for a job, you take all the bennies and you take all the falls with it. That's the job. Yeah, I'm a police officer. I'm on duty all the time. That's what I signed up for. I just don't buy that whole thing. And I agree. We need a policeman here. Be great to have another one full time. But if we have to go with the 2 on, 2 off, we got to do something. We can't be a lawless community. Whatever happened with the VPSO when we were going through this before, we talked briefly with SVT, and I never heard any outcome on that, whether it was possible for them to get a VPSO or if the city excludes them from getting one. I don't know where that all went. I'd like to hear some more information on that. Even a VPSO would be at least some kind of a presence here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I speak again?
Pardon me?
Hello? Can I speak again?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, the SVT can't get a BPO or whatever because we have a trooper contract. The trooper contract pays about 10% of the wage, but consists of 47% of the workload. If we did away with that, SVT could get a VPSO out the road and the workload on our policemen would drop dramatically. And as far as hiring policemen out of Homer, you think about this for the numbers. For every crime committed in Soldovia, the court case is held in Homer, the fines and everything go to the city of Homer. 100% of our crime, the fines and fees are paid to the city of Homer. Soldovia gets nothing. If you're going to hire Homer Police Department to work in Soldovia, call the school in July. You get Homer High School. If you call everything, you get Homer. Eventually, you will be annexed in by Homer because Homer's doing all of your city functions. So no, I am against hiring outside of Soldovia for somebody to come in. Do away with the trooper contract. It's either that or they can pick up another 37% of the salary and we could hire 2 policemen. And one would be able to have a day off. That's all I have to say on the matter.
Thank you, John. Anyone else, council?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Nathan, or George.
I'm sorry, did I jump in front of you? Sorry. Cassidy, how many
No, go ahead.
policemen are on the force in Homer?
I believe they have 7.
7, okay. So I'm just thinking about how the rotation would work. As you described this to me, the position in Seldovia would just be rotated through those 7 guys. Is that correct?
Well, hopefully it would be 8. They would, the perk for them is that they get to hire another officer.
Precisely.
Except that guy would be over here. But the other thing is, they would be, as far as legally, they'd be deputized or in some way empowered as a Seldovia officer when they were here. Is that correct?
All of that would be in the MOU and the contract. A good example of 2 communities that are doing this is Girdwood and Whittier, contracted together, and Whittier provides their police force to Girdwood for whatever their negotiated rate is. And it's all laid out in a contract of what, schedules, expectations, liabilities. I mean, all of that has to be addressed legally and detailed out. So
Well,
I have all of those details worked at this point.
I was just going, but the officer, when he was on duty here, would be working for Seldovia. And if he took some action that produced a fine or anything else, it's a Seldovia action, and that would come to us. The
Correct.
proceeds from that, it wouldn't go to Homer. Okay. The other thing, had you thought about Kenai at all?
I'm testing the waters with you guys and wanting this discussion first before I do a lot of legwork. If it's something that if it's a consensus that the council is not wanting to pursue and they want to stay status quo, let's move in that direction. But before I spend a lot of time and legwork, I wanted to definitely have this discussion with the council and see what your input and what your opinions and what you think your constituents are looking for our community.
Well, from strictly a financial point of view, we get the most bang for the buck by doing what you're talking about. No question about it. It eliminates the problem with days off, and it just solves several problems all with one shot. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Seeing how this is a discussion item, can I clarify what George just said? If we go with the rotation, it would actually cost us twice as much. Did I miscalculate that, Cassidy?
No.
When you ran the numbers for us?
The 2 on, 2 off.
Correct.
It's going to increase our budget considerably. I don't want to definitively say it's going to double our budget, but it is a higher number than our budget is right now.
Right. Okay. That's what I thought I understood. Something we may want to consider to help out if we actually got a policeman to come here is if we put out some money for a part-time policeman who we could bring in, and that could maybe be part of this thinking out of the box, bring somebody in. So this other policeman would actually take time off, take their badge off and go hang out, and they're not responsible for addressing any calls. But we could bring, it used to be at a part-time, and that went away because the community numbers went down, the budget went down. But if we're talking about a 2 on, 2 off, that's going to cost us twice as much or whatever that number might be, if it's where we end up, hire somebody part-time and have 1.5 people might behoove us. Just an idea. And so this is just a discussion item that we're going to continue to have, but I would not have a problem with Cassie, with you moving forward in the discussion and see where Homer even stands, if that's really a consideration that we could maybe have something. But again, our budget isn't going to be able to support twice as much.
It's nothing.
Thank you. Comments, council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm done.
If not, we'll move to public comment.
Talking about apples and oranges here is a problem. 2 on, 2 off. We're talking about hiring ourselves 2 officers. If we make a deal with the city of Homer, we're talking about them hiring an officer that we're just going to pay the salary for, not any of the benefits. And we get a different officer every 2 weeks. We still get a cop here all the time for less money.
More money.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, Heidi, is there anybody else with comments?
There are people on the line, Mr. Mayor, if you'll give them just a minute to see if anybody wants to raise their hand and comment.
Okay.
Not seeing anybody raise their hand at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council. What do you wish to do with this? Just discussion only?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yep, if we're looking for a consensus, to give city manager a little more direction to at least continue the discussion, to do some investigation with Homer, Kenai, et cetera, I'm definitely in agreement for that.
I would like to see the numbers of hiring a police officer and a part-time one versus outsourcing for 2.
Okay.
And doing away with the trooper contract.
Any other comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to see the numbers for both those issues, either hiring somebody also part-time with a full-time officer versus, doing the thing with Homer and or Kenai.
Okay. If that's all, we'll move on to intern city manager, update and council. Heidi, would you speak on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in your laydown, there is a proposal starting on page 15. Well, it's a city manager transition plan and strategy on page 15 and 16 of your laydown from Cassidy Cameron, city manager. And then following that is a memo for interim city manager and city manager hiring process, starting on page 17. After the last meeting and the discussion of having that end hire date or the closing date of the position be September 15th, but then fast tracking the hiring process after that position closes, I went ahead and updated that timeline for the city manager hiring. So there's a few things here to consider in this document that I drafted up. First being that draft timeline, and just hope the in-person interviews on the week of October 19th and negotiations week of October 26th. And then if that's successful, or if not successful, what that would look like afterwards. And that's something for the council to consider. And of course, it can always change depending on the candidates received. Right now, we do have 3 completed city manager applications and 2 that are partially completed. We're waiting on signatures for the meeting portion of that hiring process. There's another proposal to consider, and we can go through them one by one if that helps, or I can just kind of give you a brief summary. Is that after starting the process of looking into hiring an interim city manager and the cost of what that would be, along with who our options are of receiving. Staff was able to, and discuss, and through discussion, Layla and myself have agreed to step up if council agrees, and be co-acting city managers and interim city managers during the process where Cassidy is leaving. And through that hiring process, of course, we would want to relook at that if we get through negotiations with this first round of candidates, and that doesn't leave us with a successful hire. But with that being, Layla's agreed that she would step up to the plate with emergency management. Example, if there's a tsunami warning or something where we need emergency management incident commander, she would be willing to help with that and other duties as they came. And I would be willing to step up and assist with personnel issues, and then everything else, duties as they fall in, we can bounce off of each other if that's something the council agrees with. Also, or even, if we hire an intern potentially. Cassidy is also stated that she agrees to stay on and help finish up a few tasks that she feels are important to see finished or to see through. One being the fulfillment of the police position, and another being to assist with the new finance officer with quarterly tasks and additional core financial items as needed, as well as the continued efforts of the COVID-19 mitigation and management as it's an ongoing event. This she's proposed would be for 20 hours of service a month for $1,500 a month, or for $1,500, and anything over that 20 hours a month would be billed at $100 an hour. So that's one more thing for council to consider. Another item below that would be the interview questions, and that's not something we need an answer now, but I did want to include them in this packet so we could get the ball rolling. I included the first round interview questions and the in-person interview questions that were used for the hiring process when Todd Larson came on. So if you guys just want to shoot me an email or let me know at a later date if there are different questions that you would like to see, or some, removed or added to, that would be great. And then the last, and I'm sorry to throw so much on you guys at once, but we're just trying to get through this process. The last consideration is that the city has the option to allow or to pay for the accompaniment of a spouse with the in-person interviewees. That's something that some other communities do. It's not something that Seldovia has done in the past, but it's certainly something to consider for the council if they want to pay for that spouse to be able to accompany the applicant during the interview, the in-person interview process.
Thank you. I'm not sure if we should be discussing financial matters with the public in mind. I would suggest the executive session for a few reasons. For the police, the city manager, if everybody be willing to do that. Otherwise, council comments.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Well, this is an interesting scenario. I'm certainly not opposed to it because Heidi and Layla already know the city, know its workings, know how everything is done. I think maybe in the short term, that might be a good solution. I would like to see if Cassidy could do that. Could you give us a breakdown of what the cost of all that is going to be? The cost to Heidi, the cost to Layla, and the cost to you versus an interim city manager? Although I'm not sure that would dictate my decision, because I think it's more important at this point to have people that know what they're doing already. Okay, thanks.
Vivian,
Yeah,
take over?
I would, yeah, thank you.
Vivian, excuse me, Vivian, could you take over for a moment, please?
Okay, all
Okay,
right.
I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, I was going to speak, so I guess I will just speak. I would concur, Bobby, with what you said. I would like to see a printout of what we're looking at, and I thank those three people who have offered to step up and help us out during this interim. And if we find that the interim period is going to be longer than we thought, then we could seek out actually the hiring of an interim city manager. But I too would like to see what kind of dollars that we're talking about before we move forward, I suppose, just to be responsible. Okay, that's it, all I have to say. Anyone else, council members?
Yeah, I just would,
Go ahead, George.
I agree with you 100%. I like the idea of our folks filling in the interim much better than an interim city manager that starts cold and probably is going to be very reluctant to make any kind of a decision in the short term anyway.
Thanks, George.
So,
Jeremiah?
Hello? Hello?
Jeremiah,
Yeah, I
actually,
was,
John, could you wait, Jeremiah?
yeah,
Speak first?
sure,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Okay, thanks, Vivian. Yeah, so I had actually talked with, on the one part of this, I'd actually brought this up to Cassidy a while back about the, I mean, for her to consider staying on for consulting. I think it's a super good idea. It doesn't leave the city in a dead zone or a pinch at all. I think, you know, the rate, and we can talk about the specifics later, but I think you know, what she's proposing is super reasonable. And I like the idea of the consulting piece. In terms of the acting city manager piece, I think it makes super good sense. It's a little, you know, it's a little unorthodox, but I know it's probably not out of the question. I'm sure it's been done in other small communities around. Financially, it's probably going to make sense. So I think they thought about it. They talked through it in terms of who's covering what. So I think that that's yeah, I have no objection to that. And then if you wanted some input on the other piece, the third piece for paying for the spouse of, you know, one of the final candidates, certainly I wouldn't have an objection to that. You know, I wouldn't want to do it for all, but if we got down to the final selection or something before it was you know, an in-person or whatever, I think it'd be a good idea. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Jeremiah. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I like this idea of Heidi and Layla and Cassidy. And I like that better than seems more economical, and we won't lose any headway in the directions we're going. And I also agree about bringing a spouse. It's kind of hard to take a job and then find out later your spouse just absolutely hates the place you're working. So that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you, John. Anyone else?
Mayor?
Pearlie, was it you, Pearlie?
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I believe it's a good idea to have Layla and Heidi fill in. I'm a little wondering about the rate of pay for 20 hours, $1,500, and then $100 an hour. Is there any kind of cap on that, or you could you just go ahead and put in another whole month at $100 an hour? Or I just don't see any kind of cap on that. So I was just wondering about that.
So with the,
Catherine.
if I may, Mayor, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
So to answer your question, Pearlie, there wasn't a cap. I was hoping that that rate per hour would be a little bit of a deterrent as to kind of the way that we approach our legal advice, that we want to make sure that we know exactly what we're getting and you're not just, you know, chalking up a lot of time worrying about the small things. So I was hoping that that would be the case. So I am willing to do those 20 hours to those focus areas, as well as be supportive. I think one area that is a priority right now is making sure that Jan is confident and knows what she needs to be doing when she needs to be doing it. And that's still a process. A lot of the things that the finance officer does is they do quarterly. So that means you only do it 4 times a year. And we've only gone through 1 quarter with Jan here. So to take care of those pieces to make sure that she has what she needs to feel comfortable completing the task that she needs to do and doing a good job on it. The other piece is the police department. I think that it's a high priority to get that department staffed, whatever it looks like, whatever the model is, but to spend time to make sure that that is a ball that keeps rolling. I'm working with, talking with some people for some temporary hire, but that gets really expensive. And that leads into the interim city manager costs. Many of the interim city managers negotiate contracts with their communities that they're sitting in for. It's astronomical. It's more than a salary that you would negotiate a regular city manager at. And it does not make fiscal sense to me to hire an interim and have Heidi and Layla and Jan and the staff be telling them and getting them up to speed. That seems a little counterproductive and a little bit backwards. If you have staff members that are willing to step up to the plate and take that on, they're both very capable, very willing, very knowledgeable, very solid individuals. I don't think you're going to find an interim city manager that knows Seldovia like those two. And I'm absolutely on board with supporting them peripherally, focusing on those areas, but I'm not leaving this office and never going to engage, because I do have I place a high value on contributing positively to the community and making sure that being part of the solution and part of the process, I think is more beneficial outcome, is a higher beneficial outcome than not. So I am available. I do know that my time will be limited due to my other responsibilities and priorities, but I also want to be available, but not be taken advantage of. So if I'm working for $25 an hour, I think that the council and the staff are really going to be tacking on more contact with me. They'll think twice and make sure that what they're trying to engage with me in is worth the money that is having to be paid. And it's considerably less. If you had bumped Heidi and Layla up for the temporary positions, a few bucks, you're coming in well under half of what you're going to have to pay an interim city manager. I just ran some numbers.
Good. Mr. Mayor?
Please go ahead, Vivian.
Yes, thank you, Cassidy, for that explanation. And I thank you for considering this and doing the consulting. I think it's a great idea and taking the other two on board. And I would ask that while, when this position becomes your consultation time, that you update the council on how things are going, because really, I think it's a great idea that you're going to be trying to focus your time on those particular projects. And that when, I think it keeps the council on board and it keeps the staff members all kind of on the same page, in that you're trying to keep it at your 20 hours a week and not on other things that don't need your attention, that things can carry on. So I think I understand that deterrent of $100 an hour. But we would also put the responsibility on you to make those calls and say, you know, this is not something I think that we need to spend our time on. And I would ask you to do that. And then update the council on, you know, how is it going? And that's, you know, that's part of your 20 hours a week. Every couple of weeks or something like that, or maybe we'll still be doing at council, maybe you can update us how it's going and where we are in the process. But I appreciate you moving forward. And Jeremiah, I appreciate you having that discussion earlier. Thank you.
When do you
For
start your new
clarification
position?
purposes, it's 20 hours per month. I don't have 20 hours a week to give.
Okay, my mistake.
Okay, just making sure that that was known.
Okay, so let's make sure we do all of our work within the 20 hours a month. Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Cassidy, when do you start your new position?
Officially, October 1st, I will be attending a retreat that is a strategy building retreat. So October 1st, prior to that, I am engaging lightly in getting up to speed on some of the programs and the grants that I'll be working with directly.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anyone else? Comments? If not, we'll move to the public. Anybody from the public comments on this issue? Anybody there, Heidi?
There are a few people still in the audience, Mr. Mayor. If you give them just a minute to see if anybody would like to raise their hand, please. And I'm not seeing anybody raise their hand, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, this is just a discussion. Is there any other comments, council? If not, we'll move on. Okay,
Do you guys want to make a consensus that you agree with the plan as presented by staff, or is there something else that you'd like to see? I don't mean to bring attention to the clock, but the clock is ticking in terms of applications, resume packets, and a plan forward.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm in full support of what we've got, the proposal that's in front of us. I am in full support of the proposal of taking care of stuff in-house. Is that what you're asking for, Cassidy?
Yes, and to concur with Heidi's proposed timeline and chain of events as she sees them.
Right. I think the time frame for me works out perfect.
Thank you. Are we ready to move on?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking for consensus, I agree with Vivian. And as I already previously stated, I'm in full support of all three of those, the pieces with the acting city manager, the consulting, and the paid travel for the spouse. So, yep, no objection on my part.
I'm also in support of the entire proposal.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I am too. I would just still like to see those numbers that I requested a little earlier the next council meeting.
Okay. That's why I suggested this special meeting. Nobody wants to do that, I guess.
Well, we don't really need a special meeting. She can just put it in our
Okay.
packet.
Okay, we're going to move on if there's no other comments. Administration reports, treasury reports, none. City manager's report, see lay down.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On page 20 of your, wait, where am I at? 20 of your lay down. is the city manager's report. We've been working on all sorts of things, but I'm pressing Dr. Zink, DHSS, and the state of Alaska for the data to be shared with communities with populations under 1,000 that is related to COVID-19 cases in our areas. I was told today by Dr. Zink that there's a change in the regulation, and once that gets finalized from the Department of Law, it will be shared or published. So we're getting closer, but I'm definitely beating that drum often, to the point where now they're joking and making fun of me sometimes, but that's okay. Squeaky wheel gets the oil, and I feel very strongly about this. There's 165 organized boroughs and cities in the state of Alaska, and out of 165, 125 of those have populations under 1,000. And I think in order to approach management and mitigation of the virus in our community in a reasonable way that fits our community, we need data, and it's a critical component of how we approach management mitigation strategies in our community. So I'm looking forward to that. We're continuing engaging with the borough and the school district, as well as the state on all things COVID. We are in a downturn. Hopefully it's a decrease in the number of cases. People are, I think, figuring out and navigating their ways and their way of life, and made adjustments. And I think it's having some results in terms of the numbers and exposure. So that's positive. The City of Seldovia's Small Business Relief Grant Program closed today at 4 o'clock. We have several applications, and I'm very excited to start the scoring process and the issuance of those funds to our business community. We have, and forgive me, I cannot remember who wanted to be on that review committee. So if you just raise your hand, I think it was Bobby, Vivian, John? If somebody could refresh my memory, I would love it. And if those individuals would say, would confirm whether this Thursday morning at 10 a.m. would work for all of us to convene and go over those applications and start the scoring process. I'd really like to start getting these monies out on the street for businesses to start to hopefully feel a little bit less pressure now that we're ending the summer and going into the fall. I know that a lot of bills are coming in, and I think that the faster that we can take care of our process and our reviews and process the awards, will all benefit from that. So who is on the review committee, and are you available on Thursday?
Well, I was one of them, and I couldn't be available. And George, weren't you on that too, or was that for something else? I don't remember. I didn't write it down, which was a mistake.
Maybe our super duper clerk knows offhand.
I was on the police review. I don't recall if I was on the.
I was on that too, on the police one, but I thought you were on this grant thing too. Maybe not.
Want me to?
If I could speak to that, Mr. Mayor, I believe it was John and Bobby.
Oh, John. Yeah, it was John.
But I'll have to double check our minutes, but I do believe it was John and Bobby.
I think you're right.
Okay.
Sorry, George.
Thank you, Heidi.
I'll circle back with you, and I'm hoping that we can get that process underway and get going. So it was a good response to the program. I believe, and I don't know if Jan is still on here or not, I believe we've gotten about 12 applications, if my memory serves me right, but everything's jumbled at this point in my day. I'm going on hour 14, so. So in addition, so in relation to our small business relief grant program, if you remember last month, we talked about the Kenai Peninsula Borough putting a reallocation for their CARES funding that they received, which incorporated funding availability for incorporated communities on the peninsula. That did pass, that went through, and our appropriation is right around 84,000 that we'll be receiving from the borough. And the budget summary and kind of the dissertation that I submitted to the borough of how we would use it has the majority of that money going back into hopefully a second round of the small business grant program. So after this one has closed, I believe that after getting authorized and confirmed by the borough about our plans for spending that CARES money, we'll be putting it into a second round of grant programs for the small business community. So hopefully that will give our businesses another shot in the arm that is greatly needed during this time.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's very positive. Chance to reach out to Willie Dunn or any assembly member, please thank them for their work on making sure that our incorporated communities were included in that. I just find a tremendous amount of importance on making sure that those funds, no matter how great or small, are pushed back into our economy. And I think that's how we're going to sustain this pandemic in a more positive light than if we didn't. So stay tuned for that, but we will be getting that money. And yeah, I'm just really excited about that piece. Our CARES Act, OMB revised their requirements and the reporting detail requirements, and Jan and I have been trying to keep up with that. So we had to do a lot of backlog reporting and submit a bunch of other additional information that they're now requesting, which I'm glad to see. I think that it was very much a catch-all category, the way that we reported our expenditures, and this is more detailed, and that's where I'm very much more comfortable with. I think the more information that we provide OMB and the funding agencies for this money, the better off that everybody will know that we are allocating and spending within the requirements the way that we're supposed to. So I appreciate that they put that extra layer of requirements on us. We just talked about a police chief position, and I don't think I need to dwell on that. So the FY20 audit, we completed it. It was definitely I'm not even gonna say a labor of love. It was a tough week that week, but we, the staff and I made it through, and I feel very confident about the results of it. We're waiting for the draft report to come from Altman, but overall, I think that there were some highs and lows and some rocky points, but we worked through them and got on track. And I feel like it was a great experience for Jan to go through that process and be able to connect some of the dots for her position here. Lollipop Park, we completed the upgrades and all of the installation of the equipment is in there. I know that it's been getting a lot of use. John, Charles, and Amanda did a great job. It looks super. And I think that the majority of the community is appreciative of it. Is Pearly on here? Where's Pearly?
He's on.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I know Pearly had mentioned to me that if you guys remember through that Lollipop Park equipment discussion and process, the concerns about little feet and little hands and little children getting hung up in that dome piece of equipment was a concern of Pearly. I hope you don't mind me singling you out, Pearly, but I could say a council member and I'm sure you would pipe up. But I do want to let you know that there have been a couple of instances in the last few weeks where kids have gotten hung up in there, and a good person that lives next door to the park has gone over and helped children out of there. So I think we will put a nice signage out there, a reminder for parents to keep an eye on their kids while they're in that park. While I know that there is a certain level of our culture that is beautiful and that we let our kids not roam free, just have a little bit more freedom than in other urban areas, I do think a watchful eye of parents might be a good reminder, since we have had a couple of kids, maybe 3 kids, getting stuck in that piece of equipment. So I'd hate to see something else go wrong in there. Pearlie, do you want any follow up with that?
No, I just, I think you've done a great job explaining it. I worry about a kid getting their head stuck in it. Time it took that nice neighbor to run across the street might not be time enough. I personally think it ought to be removed. I didn't like it from the start, and I like it even less now. I think we need to really think about either plugging them holes or just removing that thing out of there. It's a bad accident waiting to happen.
But outside of that, everything looks great. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to go in there, but I think that the Lollipop Park Committee did a great job on picking some really, really great equipment that is going to last hopefully a long time. And the installation was a relative success. So it's nice to see that it was done for at least some of the warmer times of the year for kids to enjoy. The Alaska Marine Highway winter schedule is attached. It came out this afternoon. Beginning in October, we're set to get 2 ferries a month until January, and then we dry up until April. And it's good to note that the run for the winter is the ferry, and mostly their Kennecott runs are coming in from Kodiak and Port Lions and Uzinki. And so they'll be coming into here, picking up Seldovia, going to Homer, and then loading in Seldovia, or excuse me, loading Homer to Seldovia. So it's that back to Homer and back in the same day versus Homer, Seldovia, Homer. So that might be really, it's a quick turnaround, but it is available in terms of, you know, if you have your ducks in a row and everything's on time, you could theoretically, I think if Heidi and I worked this out, you could load on the ferry, get to Homer by say 10:30 or 11, depending on how many people are on there, shop like a maniac for 2 hours, and then get back in line and get back that night. So it's better than nothing. 2 ferries a month is very minimal service, but it's better than nothing. I don't have any other words. It is what it is. But please, the Alaska Marine Highway Reshaping Committee is taking public comment still. I think there's an opportunity for the community and public to offer their comments on Thursday, the 3rd. And I know that there's a piece of information in this packet regarding that schedule. And I do know that there's an individual in town who's been very much engaged in those Reshaping Committee meetings, and she'd be willing to come and give an update if that is what the council would want. But she's trying to make sure that she's advocating for Seldovia and being part of that process. And I really appreciate her efforts. I'm not going to identify her because I did not clear that with her. So, but we do have some community support and advocacy going on that front. So it's nice to see. Main Street paving, the asphalt update. Wow. I I had initially engaged with DOT as we had done in the past by obtaining DOT's equipment and having them send cold patch over, and then we provide the labor to any repairs that we needed to have done. And that's what I was working with Tyler and also Carl High on. And then last week I had a meeting with both of them, and Carl had found out that the procurement of the financial procurement of the asphalt that he requested got omitted from the OMB budget for him. And so there is no paving. None of his requests got fulfilled for the peninsula this summer. So that kind of got us a little bit scrambling, but it was a kind of good timing. Bruce Shelley with HEA called me and said that he had contracted with a paving company that would be coming over that last Thursday to do some pre-work and get it prepped, their cuts. And I asked if they mind if I contacted their contractor and see if we could piggyback on that. So it was a really quick chain of events, but it worked out beautifully. We had Dutch Boy come in on Thursday, be able to incorporate our work that we needed to be done on Main Street. And they came in today at 11:30 on the Polar Bear, and they completed everything by 4:30 this afternoon. Maybe a little 5:30, but they were able to complete all of the areas on Main Street that have been bothersome and troublesome and open all summer, as well as our Harbor View area, our Dock Street area, and Fulmore. We had our water leak that our guys jumped in there first thing this morning, cut the asphalt, dug down, got the leak repaired, got it backfilled just in time to get it repaved right at 4 o'clock. So it was like, you couldn't ever, and I think Jeremiah could appreciate this, you couldn't ever like plan for that. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Anyway, we got everything that we wanted paved and smoothed out on Main Street, met our requirements for those projects with DOT, and all in all, it was a very successful coordination of events. So all of that is done. They had a little extra, and I was able to talk them into, they didn't want to waste it and go back over tonight with a partial truck. So they smoothed some out in the handicap parking areas in front of the harbor bathrooms. So we can paint those and make that a little bit easier for handicap access in and out of that area for the harbor building and restrooms and harbor in general. So it worked out beautifully. It was all in all a success. I'll talk to you. Our guys have been pushing the envelope and really showing up and getting things done. Our punch list of things that we wanted to get done this summer is almost complete, which is a really good feeling. And I think that the guys are really proud of that. We've installed a brand new fuel tank in the multi-purpose building. We had our boilers run through by Ayers in all of our locations and done all the maintenance going into the cold season. For that, we've placed all of the fuel lines in the multi-purpose building. So we're going to get a better control on the heating system in there and make sure that we're not wasting a tremendous amount of energy and heat this fall and winter. And they've just been doing a really good job getting going in, knowing what they need to do and getting it done. So I commend those guys immensely today and yesterday and all summer. They've really put in the work. So our lift station repairs, I'm working through our options. The lift stations that we have down in this north end of the wastewater system are at their end of their life. And replacing those, they're obsolete. So we can pay to repair obsolete equipment, which is proving to be more expensive than replacing it with something that is more compatible. So I'm working with Alaska Rural Water Association, AK Pumps in Anchorage, as well as VSW, and finding funding opportunities that have hopefully a low interest loan program that has a high, there's a micro loan program through VSW that has a high rate of forgiveness for communities that qualify. And it appears that Seldovia qualifies under those stipulations of the loan. And so up to 90% of the loan could be forgiven if we meet those requirements. So I'm vetting that out, and I'll give you guys some information when I get more concrete info from Katie at VSW. But that's looking to be replaced. We need to find a solution, and their vital infrastructure. And as we've talked about so many times, our infrastructure is aging out, and if not on the way to failing, and we need to get in front of that. Water infrastructure projects, we've completed all of those. It is good to note that when Charles and Jonathan completed that repair this afternoon on Fulmore, they went up to the water plant to see what the gallons per, the amount of water that was going to town. It was 24 gallons a minute. It's never been 24 gallons a minute in the recent history of Seldovia. That's a huge difference from over 120 gallons a minute a year ago. So we've made very concerted efforts to make sure that while our infrastructure is aging, and we know that, we've made leaps and bounds in terms of repairing, getting on those repairs, and making sure that we are conserving our water supply, but also making sure that our utility is operating as best as it can, considering the circumstances and the age of it. So that was great to see such a decrease in the water usage immediately. So I'll stop there.
Very good. Any questions?
I have a comment, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
First of Cassidy, good job with Dr. Zink on getting that, hopefully getting that data that you need. So good job with that, sticking with that. And as far as the audit goes, seems to me you guys did a pretty good job. I mean, the last one took a whole heck of a lot longer than a week, didn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
It seemed like it took forever. Every time we had a meeting or something, the talk was of that audit. So hopefully everything will turn out good. Good job. And actually the ferry, we've got one at the end of March that it starts. And like you said, I guess it's better. Hey, the end of March is the end of March, you know? And I guess, like you said, it's certainly better than not having anything. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people not happy with that, but I think it's great that we've got something. So that's all I want. Oh, and I don't know about that equipment on the playground. Actually, I was there today with my great grandkids, but I never really looked at everything. So if that's going to be an issue, can we do something about that? I mean, the last thing we want is some kid to get hurt and us getting sued.
I agree, but I think that is a discussion for a later date.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Just wanted to comment on that. Okay, that's all I've got. Thanks.
Any other questions? If not, Chief of Police report, see lay down. Harbor Masters report, none. Public Works report, none. City Clerk report. Council chamber.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could just speak to that real quickly, I just wanted to update the city council that as you probably are aware, all the renovations in the council chambers and that multipurpose building that needed to be done or were scheduled to be done have been completed. And I did receive late in the week last week all the technological pieces that I was waiting on to set up our room in there for Zoom meeting capabilities. However, when we were putting it together Friday with the IT guy, we ran into a little bit of a snag because we were pulling so much bandwidth from the internet services in the area that we found out that we needed to go ahead and contact ACS about getting a dedicated council internet service line in that room. We did have an extra line in Soldovia space that was being used and is no longer being used. So I've been in contact with ACS about possibly rerouting that line into the council chambers and dedicating it for council, or either that or canceling that line completely and then starting the new line, whatever works best for them, so that we can get back in the room and online as a whole.
Thank you. Okay, information items not requiring action. City office will be closed Monday, September 7, 2020, in observe of Labor Day. Alaska Marine Highway System rehabbing group seeks input. PWSR CAC project planning request. Possible 3 mayoral candidates and 1 council member candidate for the ballot. Executive session none. Council mayor
Mr.
comments. I'm sorry, yes.
Could I speak to the informational items just real quick, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor?
Sure, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment that on number 2, AMHS reshaping group seeks input. There is information in your regular packet, page 114 through 115. The PWSR CAC project planning request is page 116 through 121. And I wanted to speak real quickly to the 3 mayoral candidates and 1 council member candidate. I originally had thought that we had 2 council member candidates and 2 mayoral candidates, but when clarifying with one of the council member candidates, it turned out that they were actually running for mayor. And I'm just waiting for one of the requirement pieces to be verified, that they are able to run for office, and that should be cleared up by September 7th. There is a process for appointing a council member if that seat isn't filled after elections, which it doesn't look like it will be. So within 30 days, council can appoint by ordinance a person to that seat. And in the past, what we've done is asked for letters of interest and from the community, and then somebody is appointed. And that statute is in the very last page of your laydown for your reference.
Thank you. Council mayor comments. It's not on agenda. Sweat. Sweat. Are you there?
I am. Yeah, thanks everybody who attended and who voiced their opinions about those things on the agenda. And thanks to the staff for all your hard work.
Colberg. Mr. Colberg, are you present?
I think his phone keeps dropping him. He keeps coming in and out of the meeting, and I don't see him right at this moment.
Okay, Campbell.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, couple things real quick. I just wanted to say congrats to Cassidy on her new position at KPED. I think that's going to be a win-win for Soldovia for sure. And I'm pretty excited about that. And glad you're not going anywhere out of the community. So that'll be good. A couple observations, Lollipop Park. Yeah, it was awesome to see the kids down there playing just alive and just having a lot of fun this past week. So I would say that whole project was a definite success down there. Same with the Marine Highway System. We also came out successfully on that with the twice a month service. So just thanks to the staff for everything. This was quite a lengthy packet. And Cassidy, your last day is the 15th. Are you going to be at that council meeting?
I will be there virtually. I have a personal item that I need to tend to, but I will be attending virtually.
Okay, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Just wanted to check. So, okay.
Yeah, I will be in attendance. Just I will not be in the office attending.
Okay, yep, no, that's perfect. All right, thanks everyone, and thank you to the community also for all of the input tonight. Appreciate it all.
Morrison,
Great meeting. Thank everybody who participated from the public and great job, staff. Thank you.
Ross,
Yeah, thank you everyone for your hard work. Tonight's packet was a big one and just amazing how much work's got done with the city. Good news with the ferry. I think people will be quite happy with it. Also, I'd like to say I walked over where the Public Works and Jim Hopkins were working this morning, saw them in action, working great together, cooperating. They just rammed out that work and it was very impressive to see. Really nice job. Nice to live in a community where everybody works together and gets things done. Thank you.
Nathan,
Good meeting. Like to thank Cassidy again for thoughts outside the box on several problems and some pretty good ideas. Appreciate it. Just reminds us again how much we're going to miss you.
okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your time and everything that's been done. Next regular meeting will be held Monday, September 14, 2020 at 6 p.m. Motion to adjourn, please.
Move to adjourn.
Second. Okay, bye everybody.
Night.
Thank you.
Night.
Cassidy has, did you have something, Cassidy, or are you just saying bye? Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.